If you're new to AI video generation, you may have already asked yourself, why does the same AI video generation prompt give you a masterpiece with one model, but a blurry mess on another? Today I'm going to show you the prompt engineering techniques that professional AI video creators use to get consistent, high-quality results across the major models. I'll walk you through a 6-layer framework that transforms basic prompts into cinematic shots, plus 3 advanced techniques that can save you lots of money while getting Hollywood-quality results. And follow along, I'll be using Venice AI, which offers access to the best open source models and the best proprietary models on the market, all in one interface. So the first issue you might be experiencing is having too vague of a prompt. A woman walking in a garden will probably not generate as stylish as a video as medium tracking shot of a woman in a flowing red dress walking through a sunlit Victorian garden, 35mm lens, golden hour lighting, shallow depth of field, gentle camera movement following her from the side. AI models are trained on professional film and video data. They respond very well to cinematography language, filmmaking terminology, not everyday descriptions. You have to think like a director giving instructions to a camera operator. Case in point, our more detailed prompt here gives us a very detailed image in response, whereas our simpler prompt gives us something a bit more generic that may or may not work for our use cases. So let me introduce you to the 6-layer framework for mastering AI video prompt engineering. This was a universal framework that will work for all models. The first of 6 layers is the subject and action. What is happening in your shot? So make sure you're very clear on who or what is the focus of the shot you want to generate. Is there an action or movement? What are they doing? And is there an emotional state or an energy to this shot, an essence we want to capture? Imagine you're the director. So as our example showed earlier, a woman in a flowing red dress walking through a sunlit Victorian garden with a contemplative expression. We start to see a scene here. We start to get a vibe. The second layer is the shot type and framing. Is it a wide shot? Is it a medium shot? Is it a close-up? A wide shot shows full environment and context. A medium shot is from waist up. It balances the subject and the setting. And a close-up shows a person's face or detail. It's an intimate portrayal of whatever the subject is. Meanwhile, we want to think about the framing of our shot type. Are we at eye level? Is it neutral? Is it natural? Is it a low angle, which makes a more powerful, dramatic feeling coming from the subject? Or is it a high angle, which gives off a feeling of vulnerability? Next, we have camera movement. How does the shot move through space? We have a static shot where the camera remains still. We have a tracking shot where the camera maintains a connection with the subject. Then we have panning where the camera might rotate horizontally, revealing more of the environment. Then we have the dolly or push in, push out. This is where the camera moves closer or farther, creating intensity. So a pro tip here is you want slow and deliberate movements to create a cinematic effect. If you're specifying slow dolly forward or gentle tracking shot, will bring you on your way to professional quality results. The next layer is lighting and atmosphere. We want to set the mood and emotional tone with lighting. Now you may have heard of golden hour before, when the sun is at the perfect level for lighting a human face without creating shadows. That creates a warm, soft, even romantic, a cinematic feel at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. Then there's blue hour, which is twilight, and we're a bit more blue in color as opposed to golden. This creates a mysterious or atmospheric effect. Then you have studio lighting, which is very precise. It's controlled. You can create dramatic effects here, and generally speaking, you can consider it more professional because of that control you have over the shot. So beyond the color temperature, like is it warm, is it cool, is it red, is it really alarming, we want to think about the light quality. Is it soft or hard? Is it diffused or direct? Are there any environment effects? Is it raining? Is there fog? Are there particles on the screen? And finally, we want to think of contrast and shadow depth. Even in this lighting image here, you can see how strong the lights are versus the shadows. That is contrast. The 5th layer is the technical specs. Now this is the professional look and feel. This is like telling the AI which camera, which lens, what is the hardware tech stack, so to speak, that the model should simulate. So different lens types include 35mm wide angle, 50mm natural perspective, 85mm portrait, or even a macro, which is extreme detail, extreme close-up. The lens you use will also affect your depth of field. Is it shallow with a blurred background? Is it deep with everything in focus? Is there an aesthetic blur quality called bokeh? And then there's what's called a rack focus, where the focus shifts between subjects. So if we have one subject in the foreground and one in the background, and the background starts blurred and the the foreground starts in focus, then a rack focus would switch it. So adding film aesthetics will really enhance your prompting here. So for example, if you want to add texture and character to your shot, say 35mm film grain, anamorphic lens flares, Kodak Portra color palette, IMAX quality, vintage 1970s film stock, etc., etc. A quick web search will find you plenty of different websites for finding different styles of cameras, of lenses, etc. Finally, the sixth layer is duration and pacing. That's the rhythm and flow that you would like for your video. So how long is the shot? 3 to 10 seconds? Now, in many interfaces, you don't actually get to specify that in the prompt. It's in a different parameter you're setting, including Venice AI, but it's something to keep in mind. You might want slow motion or fast motion to create a dramatic or emotional emphasis. Or you can make a time lapse, which is 2 to 5, maybe even 10 times the speed for an energetic progression of activity or sequence of events to show the passage of time. So in your prompt, you might not always specify the exact duration, but you do want to mention the speed, 0.5 speed, or 120 frames per second, for example. The rhythm, is it slow paced? Is it energetic? Is it fast? Etc. Or if you want to attach a transition to it, a smooth fade out, or hard cut ready. This will affect how your shot begins or ends. So the general prompt here to look at, which I'll put below in the description, is shot type of subject doing action in or at setting, comma. Camera movement, comma, lens, camera, comma, lighting, comma, atmosphere, comma, technical details. Now, obviously, you can include whichever you want, but the more you include, the more fine-tuned and granular control you're going to have over your shot, and the better results you're going to get, the more money you will save, not having to iterate over and over. It does not generally have to be in order, but I would recommend definitely you putting the shot type and the subject in action first. Okay, so let's see that template in action. Perfect medium shot framing, that is shot type, of a female athlete in vibrant athletic wear. Subject, performing a dynamic leap dance move, action, between buildings in a city's downtown. Setting, smooth dolly camera movement visible through motion blur trails. Camera movement. Dramatic golden hour lighting with volumetric rays streaming through urban architecture. That's lighting, a little bit of setting. Shot with 85mm lens, creating beautiful bokeh depth of field. Lens, composed with dynamic pacing and rhythm. A bit of atmosphere. Includes subtle visual overlays showing layers like translucent technical annotations. And that's where this grid little tech thing comes in later on. This is more atmosphere. And then it more or less closes off with the technical details, ultra high quality, 8K resolution, professional cinematography, award-winning composition. That's somewhere where you might want to write a different style, like, oh, it's an anime, or it's a cartoon, or it's 3D rendered. And we finish off with just something to hopefully wrap it all up with an overarching style. Premium film production meets technical excellence. So you can see by generally following this prompt, you can guarantee yourself better results than just saying woman jumping on the street. Now that we have a good idea of how to structure our prompts, let's explore 4 of the most powerful models offered by Venice AI and how to optimize each of them. First, let's talk Kling 2.5 for best-in-class athletic movement and character animation. This is great for athletic action rendering. So a good prompt structure for Kling, detailed visual description, camera movement, professional cinematography, specific style reference, lighting conditions, and high quality. Now, obviously, that follows more or less our 6-layer prompt framework, but this has been reported to get really good results. So let's generate an example using this prompt of a professional soccer player scoring a goal. And I also want to mention, especially true with Kling, but for all models, if something doesn't need 10 seconds, don't give it 10 seconds. If you want to see a soccer player scoring a goal sliding on their knees, you probably don't need 10 seconds. 5 seconds is probably going to do it. And I'll show you what happens when you give it more time than it needs after this. Okay, so these Kling results are going to give us a nice lesson in iteration. Let me show you why. So it's not doing exactly what I asked, and that can be fixed with just better prompts, like iteration. For example, sometimes it might help to use an AI to give you a very detailed prompt so you get the result you're looking for. Boom. Now let me show you what happens when you use Kling, but you give it too much time to fill in the action. So we got a professional basketball player executing a 360-degree dunk. Slow motion camera tracking the athletic movement, dynamic lighting, highlighting muscle definition, sweat particles in midair, natural fluid motion, cinematic sports photography style, high energy action, professional cinematography, 8K quality. That is a mouthful, but it should also be very detailed. So let's take a look at the output. All right, here we go. Okay. This is what happens when you give it more time than it needs. If you only need 5 seconds, give it 5 seconds. Kling was given a prompt of 10 seconds, so it's filling in the space with whatever it believes fits the prompt. But let's talk about something else as well. I do want to point something out, because all of us have been watching the evolution of AI and generating videos, and so I mentioned Kling 2.5 being great at athletic movement, character animation, motion fluidity, action rendering. And even though the inhumanness of this move is kind of silly, I do want to point out though that, do you remember when we used to see like 7 fingers on hands and like body parts morphing into one another when we were trying to generate videos I feel like just a few months ago, not that long ago, in the previous generation of video models? Now you can see here that even though this movement is totally inhuman, we don't lose the clarity of any of these limbs. We don't see any morphing. All we see is really just inhuman movement here. So I don't want to take that away from Kling. What that means is I just got to make this prompt a little better. And it might take quite a few iterations to get where you want it. You might get really close, but still just a little off. But eventually, you'll get there. Boom. So that is something to keep in mind for choosing the duration of the shot you want to generate. The AI will fill the space with the action you give it. Okay, so next up is Sora 2, what we've all been waiting for, the multi-shot master. Sora 2, as you probably know by now, creates multi-shot scenes for you. So it's not just one shot you're generating like in pretty much all the other models. This will create seamless multi-angle sequences with consistency. So with one prompt, it'll very likely create an establishing shot, show some action, some detail, and reaction, all in one sequence. It will maintain the spatial relationship and much of the consistency you're probably seeking in such a scene of multiple shots. And once again, it responds really well to professional camera language. So I've got a prompt here. So it'll start as an establishing wide shot of a bustling Parisian cafe at golden hour, slowly pushing into a medium shot of a woman reading at a corner table, then cutting to close-up of an espresso cup, rack focus to her contemplative expression as she looks up toward the window. 35mm lens, warm cinematic lighting, shallow depth of field, seamless transitions, maintaining spatial consistency. So let's go over here. We're just going to go straight to Sora 2 Pro, hey? We'll do a default 8-second shot, 16:9, and let's just go 1080p, huh? Let's go for it here. Let's see something beautiful. Okay, let's take a look here. We got some golden hour already. Some stylization here for sure. Wow. This is almost following it to a T. We got our establishing wide shot. Slowly pushing in. Woman reading at the table. We got a cut there. Did we get... there's the close-up of the espresso cup. Rack focus. See that rack focus? Focus on the espresso. Shift the focus to the woman. Wow. Boom. This is really incredible. Sora 2 Pro is really something special here. So Sora 2 Pro you want to use for multi-shot storytelling to create scenes like that. Okay, so finally we're going to go through Alibaba WAN 2.5. Okay, now the first thing that's cool about WAN 2.5 is that it's an open source model. And on Venice, it's also very uncensored. It's not a private model, as some are on Venice, but it is anonymized. And because it's open source, it also means it's much cheaper. If we generate a 10-second 1080p video here, we're only looking at 165 credits, whereas Sora 2 Pro is going to be roughly double that, at least double that. So that's the first thing. But the other thing WAN excels at is it can do lip sync very well. So you can give your character dialogue and it will say that dialogue. And at the time of this recording, it's a bit hit or miss on the other models, but for now, WAN 2.5 does a pretty good job of it. Okay, so let's take a look at this prompt. We got a medium shot of a visionary figure in Renaissance Venice, standing on a grand marble balcony overlooking the Grand Canal at golden hour. Neoclassical, futuristic aesthetic, ornate Venetian architecture, blah, 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 rich period costume, futuristic accents, 4K, 60 FPS. And then the character is going to say, "Don't sleep on Venice AI," with a commanding and visionary tone, emphasis on don't and Venice AI. The sync here, perfect lip sync with mouth movements, theatrical hand gesture on don't sleep, proud sweeping gesture toward Venice skyline on Venice AI, eyes gleaming with conviction. All right, let's see how it does.
Don't sleep on Venice AI.
Wow. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you want to be careful about how much time you give it, but I kind of like how it filled the space there. Very dramatic. I like the neo-classical feel.
Don't sleep
Great syncing
on Venice AI.
Wow, great syncing. And then we got some nice text here too. I kind of want to know where this is going. So, open source model, well priced, and good. So think about using this model for multilingual purposes, maybe even music videos with singing you could try out. But anything that has heavy character narratives, this is going to be very helpful for. Finally, let's talk about Google Veo 3 and 3.1. So Google Veo 3 allows you to use JSON to get more control over your shots. And you could liken this to just having a prompt, but in some ways, especially if you're developing prompts programmatically, perhaps for using an API somewhere to generate many shots at a time, or even to incorporate in a workflow somewhere, having JSON availability is very convenient. But beyond convenience, being able to use JSON allows us to get more consistent results, higher quality outputs, and just more precise control. Because in each JSON key value pair here, it's very clear what our description is. So for example, let's look at what this JSON would look like as a prompt. We would be saying a cyberpunk street market at night with neon signs, slow dolly forward at eye level, 35mm lens at 0.5x speed, neon lights, volumetric fog, high contrast, teal and orange color grading, cinematic feel, and then 8 seconds, which we don't need to say because we can just set that here in Venice AI. So look at the difference here. A cyberpunk street market at night with neon signs, we can assume the model knows that this is the scene. But when we add more and more details, when this data is in JSON format, the AI is going to know exactly what this means. Slow dolly forward. Okay, that's the movement. Eye level. Angle. 35mm lens at 0.5 speed. Okay, maybe that one's okay. But just in general, it's much more cut and dry. It's much more straightforward for the AI to understand what we want. So we're going to generate that with Google Veo 3.1 fast. Now, while that's generating, why do we want to use Google Veo 3? Well, Google Veo 3 offers premium production. You've probably seen it before. You can probably accomplish your most exact creative vision here if you have one, which is not required. But commercial projects, art projects, big vision projects where you really have a particular plan, Google Veo 3 is a great bet for accomplishing it. And a big part of that is because you can fine-tune your prompts with JSON. Now it looks like I had the aspect ratio set to vertical. That's okay. Let's take a look.
Obey the curfew. All androids must register by 2200 hours. The authority is watching.
Cool shot, right? So let's look at it. Cyberpunk street market at night. We definitely got that. Camera movement, slow dolly forward at eye level. Let's check that again. See, we're right at the eye level of all of these characters.
The authority is watching.
And remember, the subject here is the street market. It's not any person. It's not anything. It's just this place. The lens is 35mm. I can't quite verify that just by my eyes here. Speed, 3.5x.
All Androids
I would say that's fairly slow.
by
It looks like they're
2200 hours.
not quite walking as fast as they would be. And then, of course, the lighting looks great. We do have some fog here. We do have high contrast. So that is an example of how you can get really fine-tuned results with Google Veo 3 using the JSON. So now we have an idea about the strengths of each model. And in just a couple minutes, we're going to run through a workflow that capitalizes on the strengths of each model. But first, I just want to share some advanced techniques you can use to iterate better, save money, and get better output from these video generation models. The first one is called the 5-10-1 rule. This is an iteration strategy you can use for cost-efficient refinement. So the idea is you make 5 variations on a cheaper model like Kling or Wan and spend roughly 40 to 50 to 60 credits each. This is going to depend on how long your video is and the resolution. But you iterate, you make variations there, then you select the best from that initial batch. Then you do 10 more iterations on the best one. Then you take that prompt and you do a final render on a premium model like Veo 3 or Sora 2 Pro. In that case, you'll want to use Veo 3.1 full quality, which can use around 352 credits. But this will save you credits in the long term, because if you imagine spending 350 credits over and over to get the best result just to find the best prompt, you're going to be spending quite a bit, perhaps thousands. But by using this 5-10-1 technique, you can perhaps find your optimal shot and maybe 1,000 credits. The next advanced technique is negative prompting. And this works for most models. We'll talk about that in a second. But negative prompts are things you want to not see. Okay? Negative prompt is like, don't put this in here. So the negative prompt, blurry, low quality, distorted faces, warped hands. Like for the basketball shot, like arms in the back of the body, text artifacts, watermark, etc., etc. So we want good visual quality, which means the negative prompt explains what bad quality is, what we don't want to see. Artifacts, anatomical issues with humans, consistency problems. So Veo 3, especially if you use the JSON, has the built-in negative prompt field. Kling, you're going to have to just add it to your main prompt with avoid or without. Don't use something like that. Get creative. And with Sora, you're going to have to be very implicit here. So you're going to say what you want. Everything that you want, which you're not going to have as good of results with Sora by saying don't do this, don't do that, or by saying negative prompt. You're just going to have to be more detailed in what you want. So if you don't want blurry, you say very focused and crisp. You don't want low quality, you say high quality. You don't want distorted faces, you say very clear faces. Understand what I mean? Our final advanced technique is style reference stacking, okay? This is where you combine multiple film references for unique aesthetic. So our example prompt here is shot of a detective walking through rain-soaked streets, aesthetic combining Blade Runner 2049 color grading, plus 7 atmosphere and mood, plus heat camera movement, using an anamorphic lens and cinematic bokeh. So here we see we have films we want to stack with different directors, perhaps, with different eras of how films looked, with maybe different brands and aesthetics. You can get very creative here. I'm just giving you a tease, but pro tip, stack 2 to 3 references for great results. The more you use, you're going to get more diluted aesthetics. But honestly, you can also use this technique to come up with really unique styles that will distinguish your video content from others. So for our final prompt here, I'm going to use Veo 3.1 full quality. I haven't done any iteration here, so we're just going to see how that goes. I'm going to refine this a little bit. We'll say medium shot of a detective walking through rain-soaked streets. Aesthetic combining Blade Runner, 7, heat. Now, I do recommend using AI to generate your prompts for best results. But before we do this, let's ask Venice large here, which is just a text model, nothing generated. Let's say we're going to use the following prompts to generate an AI video generation service. What details would you glean from the 3 films mentioned? And then we'll just put that here. So now let's see what a pretty typical and powerful LLM would say of the Blade Runner 2049 aesthetic, 7, and heat. So we'd get a dominant palette of desaturated teals and blues, yes, for the color grading. High contrast, critical detail to the skin tones, as if lit by holograms. 7, atmosphere and mood, texture overload, okay. I don't remember that movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. Frame the detective low angle, so there's a shot reference there. Steadicam gliding with the subject, not around them. Zero handheld shakiness. Movement is predatory. Okay, so let's assume that this is accurate. Let's take this prompt and let's give it to Veo 3.1 full quality here. Let's do 6 seconds. 16 by 9. Wow. All right, I haven't even pressed play yet, and I can already see that most of this prompt has been adhered to. Wow. I think that's a good place to wrap up this video. We've gone through the basics of prompt engineering and the 6-layer framework. We've gone through 4 of the video generation models that Venice AI provides. We've explored different ways to prompt these models and explore their capabilities. We've explored strategies for saving money while you're iterating your ideas, negative prompting for omitting what you don't want, and how to stack styles to get really cool aesthetics. I really love the music on this one too. You could make a whole film with that. Remember when we started with that basic woman walking in a garden prompt? You now have a framework that's on par with the best online AI creators, from shot composition to camera movement, from lighting to lens selection. The difference between amateur and professional AI video isn't talent, it's technique. And you've just learned the most cutting edge techniques for getting the best results. So what are you waiting for? Get over to Venice AI and start having some fun. Start making your film. You have everything you need here with all these models. It's a great community. You can also join the Venice AI Discord to ask questions and share your work and start generating AI video content like the pros. Make sure to like and subscribe to learn more about Venice AI and the different services it offers.